Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we getting on? So the PTS has reopened, bringing with it playtesting for this summer's Test Your Metal update. There are 3 new events in this update, and we are going to take a look at one of them today, Moonshine Jamboree, with its Raiders theme. Okay, so usual orders of business before we dive right in. This is, of course, PTS content. It is unreleased and everything is subject to change. Obviously, if you guys want to avoid seeing any of these events before they land on the live servers, before they are properly released, then now would be the opportune moment to bow out. But with that out of the way, let's jump in, take a look at what Bethesda have to say about this event, and have a look at some footage of it. So, Moonshine Jamboree. You are invited to join the Moonshine Jamboree at the Sunday Brothers cabin. It's tragic what befell the Sunday boys, but their devotion to mixing up the finest moonshine in all of Appalachia lives on with Moonshiner Ned, their trusty handybot. There's just one problem. Maya Magic Moonshine's key ingredient is gulper venom, which Ned can't acquire alone. That's where the Jamboree truly shines. Help Ned pick up where the Sunday Brothers left off by hosting a party that will attract as many of the beasts as possible to the cabin. So, first up we have to meet with Moonshiner Ned behind the bar inside the Sunday Brothers cabin in the Maya to kick off the festivities. Then we light the Jamboree bonfire and keep your guard up. Hordes of vicious gulpers who are curious about the raucous Jamboree will soon flood the area. Also hordes of feral ghouls as well. There's certainly plenty of those around, and there's a good few anglers as well, so watch out for their long-range attacks because those get quite vicious. So take down the gulpers and collect as much acidic gulper venom as you can. Pour it, as directed by Moonshiner Ned, into a nearby bathtub so that it can be used to serve up a fresh batch of moonshine. Incidentally, that bathtub is inside the main building. It's on the ground floor inside, so just watch out for that one, because it took me a few minutes to figure out where on earth I was supposed to deposit this gulper venom, and yeah, that's where it is, inside the main building. Make sure to defend the 3 stills located around the cabin grounds. If they get destroyed, the party will be ruined. If you manage to deposit 30 acidic gulper venom in time, and the stills remain intact, then the Jamboree will be a roaring success. The most masterful moonshiners among you can optionally collect up to 60 acidic gulper venom before the event concludes for increased rewards. Speaking of rewards, by completing Moonshine Jamboree, you will earn Raider faction reputation, some loot, the all-new Gulper Smacker melee weapon, and a few bottles of Gulper Shine, which is actually called Maya Magic Moonshine, which you can drink to increase the Gulper Smacker's damage versus Gulpers. Yeah, we just head over to the Sunday Brothers cabin in the Maya and speak to Moonshiner Ned, who is very much like Rose in his appearance. There's a few little differences, but it's definitely a similar vein. Quite a cool look. He doesn't currently have any voice lines, so I've no idea what he'll actually sound like and what he actually has to say, but you still start the event, so that's the main thing on the PTS at least. We do know that the voice lines and stuff are due to come later. A lot of them are still work in progress or getting their finishing touches put off before they get added into the game, so that will be adding between now, obviously, and the summer. So yeah, basically head on out to the farm area, I suppose, out behind the Sunday Brothers cabin. There are 3 stills out there, which obviously all the creatures are going to kind of charge towards those and try and smash them up, and we just take them down. It's quite similar in a lot of ways to Eviction Notice, except it's got several focal points instead of just one main one. It also has a couple of similar issues to Eviction Notice as well. The ebb and flow kind of rhythm of the event needs a little bit of work. Currently there are 4 waves of enemies, which is a bit unusual. It's fine, it gives it a good length actually, that. I quite like that. But there's a kind of strange thing with it when enemies sort of spawn, then a whole bunch will attack, and then they don't attack anymore. I'm not sure if it's a case of rotating spawns around the area, or if it's just the way it goes and they don't spawn quite as often as perhaps they need to. If you've got fewer players, it might feel a little bit more balanced perhaps. It's kind of hard to tell with it being on the PTS, but as it currently stands, the rhythm's not quite right on that. Speaking of it being on the PTS, as I said with my previous Eviction Notice video, there is a similar problem here, wherein the PTS particularly attracts high-level, long-term experienced players with really powerful builds, which does tend to result in a few of them camping the spawn areas and slaughtering all the attackers before anybody else can get a look in. If you look closely in the footage here, you'll probably see a few occasions where I had spotted an enemy and was about to shoot, but somebody else had taken them out before my Gatling laser could even spin up, which is clearly a balance issue. I know Bethesda are looking at treating a number of balance issues in the game at the moment, and there's a few things being tested out on the PTS here. Some of them might stick, some of them might not, depending on the rumours you hear and believe, but we'll see what happens there. Obviously, they seem to be looking at pulling back those bloodied stealth commandos quite a bit, which is definitely a good thing. It needs to be done. Currently really hamstrings people who are not going for that build, and that's not good. So hopefully things will get improved on that point. I know if they take a close look at the way particularly Moonshine Jamboree has been going, but all events on the PTS in general, they'll certainly see what sort of builds are disproportionately powerful compared to others. So fingers crossed Bethesda will be able to sort that one out in time. Obviously, once it goes to live servers, some of this, or a significant amount of this even, will probably be reduced because you'll have more worlds and you'll have those high-level players spread out across more versions of the event, so you get a better balance, but it still needs some work doing. It's definitely still a problem I run into on live servers. But yeah, apart from the rhythm being a bit iffy and a few players being a little bit too dominant in the event, it's really quite good fun. As with Eviction Notice, it's going to be a fairly decent XP farm once the balance gets sorted out, because there's a good number of enemies to take out, and in particular, it's going to be a good legendary farm, because there are a lot of legendaries spawn in this event. So, good opportunity to run around and grab a decent number of legendaries, especially if you're turning them in for script in order to get yourself legendary modules so that you can craft your own. The acidic gulpers are quite fun as well. When you take them out, they explode in an acidic ground area. It'll look like the green floaters or the toxic enemies in Daily Ops. It's basically the same thing as those. So you tend to take quite a lot of damage quite quickly if you're standing in that, so it's worth watching out for. You run over, grab the acidic gulper venom, dump it in the bathtub, and defend the stills. The stills seem to have a reasonably decent health at the moment. Mind you, not many enemies are even getting to them because of the high level, high damage output of players on PTS. So it's hard to say for sure, but they might be a little bit too durable, maybe, for the event. If there's no chance of it failing, then that takes some of the pressure off. Although I have kind of two schools of thought on whether or not that's such a bad thing. Obviously, if the event's failing left, right, and centre, that's not good either. So, hard to tell exactly where the balance is on that. But the event's quite fun. It's a cool location. The overhaul of the area is pretty cool. It's got a lot more of a raider vibe than it had before. I know a few people are unsure about why exactly somewhere so far from the crater would be raiders themed. Pass is the honest answer. Moonshine, alcohol, colour, and raiders, yeah, those kind of go together, I suppose. And just because they're based at the crater doesn't mean they don't explore the rest of Appalachia. In fact, if you're wandering around and see raiders wandering about, you know they do. So it kind of makes sense, although carting it back to the crater would be kind of a nightmare for them, I imagine. Either way, it's quite a cool event. Getting a little extra raider reputation is definitely a win for those who still need it. Obviously, I've maxed out both of mine for both factions now, so that's kind of academic to me. The Gulper Smacker melee weapon reward seems to drop at the moment every single time you do the event. I don't know if that's intentional or not. I tend to get different versions of it because there are different mods available, and you get some bottles of Maya Magic Moonshine as well. The patch notes for this particular event suggest that it only increases the Gulper Smacker's damage against Gulpers, but the notes in the Pip-Boy in-game actually suggest it increases damage against everything with the Gulper Smacker. It's a two-handed melee weapon that looks suspiciously like a paddle, but it's quite a fun thing, so for those who like their two-handed melee builds, that should be an interesting additional option for you to try out. Obviously, through the course of this year, we know there's going to be more emphasis on melee builds, in terms of balance changes and other bits and pieces like that. So obviously there are new weapons coming with the expeditions in the autumn as well that are melee too. There'll probably be range ones as well, but we do know about some melee ones that are coming, so I'm not surprised to see some increased emphasis on that, and hopefully their efforts to balance out some builds and make more builds viable will be successful, because that's always a good thing to have some variety. And it means you can switch up your build and try something different without necessarily feeling like you're overly weakening yourself, which is always a win, I think. So yeah, quite a fun event. A little bit iffy on the rhythm of it so far, and enemies maybe not quite tough enough compared to the level of damage output players are doing. This particular event is not intended to be as high level as Eviction Notice is, so relatively speaking, that is a factor. It's meant to be slightly easier, but if they're going to do that, they maybe need to increase the number of enemies coming in, because it can be a bit hard for some people to contribute sometimes, and to feel like they're actually getting the most out of the event. In terms of turning in 30 acidic Gulper Venom and 60 even, they could probably buff those numbers. bump them up a little bit, because it's not actually that hard to get to 30 or 60 acidic gulper venom at all during this event. It's a reasonably long event. There's plenty of gulpers to harvest for it, especially when you've got a good number of players. Obviously, as time goes on, you'll start to see a drop-off. It's just a natural part of the game. So, in that case, maybe further on live servers, 30 and 60 is actually going to be a better long-term balance. But for the PTS at the moment, it's certainly not difficult at all to hit those milestones. There's a few bits of jank with that, incidentally. Occasionally, you'll run over to the bathtub to dump your acidic gulper venom in there, and it won't activate. So, you won't actually get to drop it in at all. So that's basically what the PTS is for, trying to iron out those little wrinkles, but hopefully that'll be sorted before it goes live. But other than that, it's quite a fun event, and as I say, it'll be a good legendary farm as well, which is always welcome. Not quite as good an XP farm as Eviction Notice, I don't think, but definitely a good legendary farm, so it's always good on that front, and more variety in terms of public events is fun too. So, there we go, Moonshine Jamboree, quite a cool little new event with a raider theme and really cool location for it as well. Nice to see a little bit more public events going on in the mire as well, as the range of them's a little limited at the moment. I think there's only really Heart of the Swamp over there at the moment, so an extra one is definitely nice too. So, do hope you guys found this interesting and informative. If you did, please do consider dropping subs and likes for me. I do very, very much appreciate it. We've got videos on Eviction Notice and a short video on Test Your Metal as well, going to be coming up soon too, so do keep an eye out for those. Down below the video, you can find social media links, the merch store, and channel memberships on that shiny blue button as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in that way, I very much appreciate it. It really, really helps out. Massive thank you to everyone who's done that already. And if you get a chance to join us for live streams as well, we are, of course, playing 76, having a good time with that, and playing a few other bits and pieces as well. We've got through quite a few games already this year. It's been good fun, so I do hope to see you there. But for now, thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to speaking to you all very, very soon.